Hello everybody, Glass from Glass Half Dead here, and today I want to talk to you about Warhammer 40,000 Kill Team, and specifically the Glass Half Dead's Moroch season or quarter tier list rankings. Of course, this is being done at the beginning of the Moroch tier season whatever, so when it comes to the Phobos and the Blooded, the two new teams, it's a touch speculative. But everything else is based on a mixture of win rates, assuming I'm paying attention to that, observation, obviously, and just outrageous amounts of wild personal bias, as I attempt to tell you the power levels and how they will appear 3 months from now, just before we get our new teams from Kill Team Dark, whatever that may be. I'm going to give my tier list, justify my thoughts, and then finally discuss a few things about the compendium at the end and why you will notice they are all lower down on the tier and how I feel about that. Check bookmarks if you just want to see the tier list slide and you don't care about anything else. A few provisos before we jump into the tier list so that everyone's on the same page. Every team in the Glass Half Dead, right, so you'll see soon, S tier or S++, whatever, the top tier is the Glass Half Dead logo, and then it's the different kill team shapes, so 1, 2, 3, 6, because that's fun, that's on brand. Let's keep it on brand. So every team in the Glass Half Dead logo is what you take when you want to podium at a tournament. Teams in 1 and 2 can win with skill, matchup dodging, or dice. Teams in 2 and 3 are able to put up a good fight in every match, but no podiums for them, let's be honest. And then teams in 6, of which there are only like 3, okay, need kind of... I've put on the slide here serious help, and they're not going to provide a great play experience for anyone. That's a bit of an overstep, to be honest. They're fine, like they're not unplayable. No team is unplayable, apart from the 3 that were removed due to the balanced data slate, which was Forge World, Thousand Suns, and Troop. Those are unplayable, because you shouldn't play them. But everything else, even the ones in Tier 6, Tier Pentagon, whatever it is, they're playable, you can play them, just, you're playing at a rather large disadvantage, even when you're playing against other compendium teams, sort of thing. Okay, I hope that makes sense. For reference, this is Games Workshop's win rate stats for May. This is obviously what they mentioned in the Balanced Data Slate article. Here you go. I've put it up here because why not? I would like to say the next slide is subscriber only. So either avert your eyes and ears or just jump straight to the slide, the tier list slide. I think we all know what's coming. That's right. It is the double hello slide. Wow, so much stuff going on. Isn't this a busy old slide? If you want access to the double hello slide in the next video, like, subscribe, make a pact with the Chaos Gods, and leave a comment. You know, the huge. If you really like what I'm doing, I also have a Patreon, which would be awesome if you could check out. Greatly received. There's a few benefits for you there. Data cards, early access to the Vantage Point podcast, etc. Oh, right. Yes, that's right. I also have merch, which you can see up there, which I attempted to make kind of subtle. If you know, you know. If you don't, you don't, and that's fine either way. I also have a Kill Team podcast, as I just mentioned, called Vantage Point. You should check it out. I also have the largest Discord server, which I'll talk about in just a moment, in fact. Also, on a less Kill Team related note, I have a 40k Age of Sigmar and in theory one day War Machine channel you should check out called Full Scale Wargaming. I don't know what I'm doing with that, but it exists. Finally, if you like this video, sharing it around either with word of mouth or on the hive of scum and villainy that is the internet would be awesome. Thank you. Now before we get into it, I want to do a quick tell me about your hobby. I just asked you to leave a comment, but maybe you're not really a tier list guy. You just want to look at the tier list and move on. Well guys, this is my hobby. This is what I've got going on. Tell me about your hobby. I just finished building a Necromunda Ironheads gang, including a Ridge Runner and Goliath with Squat Crew. Oh look, I've got them here. Isn't that fun? And then somebody asked me for size comparisons on my Discord. So, you know, I took those pictures as well. I post that kind of stuff in my Discord, my hobby side, which I regularly on my channel just say I hate hobby and leave it at that. But actually I do an outrageous amount of hobby. If you're into that, check out my Discord, jump into the Hobby Accountability channel where we try to keep each other motivated. Okay, almost there, don't worry, we're still in the intro. Here's a few general rules for you to decide for yourself which kill teams are or should be good. I've put my kind of 4 or 5 things that I think about. So firstly, kill team is a game of skill, and skill does win, almost always, which is a really good thing. Top tier factions, however, are typically the factions that let you jump a skill level. This is where you can go into, let's say you're an average player and you're playing someone above you in skill, like unquestionably above you. If they're playing a bottom tier faction and you're playing a top tier faction, you'll be able to jump over them. However, I would argue that in kill team generally, if you're playing your average faction and your opponent who is better than you is playing a faction that is below you, they should still win. Yeah, so the top tier really is one that actually pushes you above your actual skill level. That's roughly how I view it. Any team with over 12 models has inherent strength built into the faction. That might change somewhat with the recent grenade nerf, but inherently, over 12 models means you have an activation advantage, and so will have some very strong matchups. And if the entire meta goes more towards an elite team, 12 plus models, you can start winning games pretty easily. Not easily, right? 3-up armor, so the elite teams here, you know, we're looking at Warp Coven, Legionaries, and Phobos, really. There are others as well, as I'm about to mention. Is very forgiving, really good for new players, as it allows them to not really understand the movement and the terrain that well, and then not be punished for it. So it's great for beginner levels. But it's not enough in just itself to give you any sort of skill jumps just by it being easy to play. It's just a good beginner place. However, if you have 3-up armor and a Feel No Pain, aka Death Guard, it's absolutely outrageous. And that does allow you to skill jump a little bit. Also, minor PSA. It's Legionary, not Legionnaire. You're welcome, bestie. Apparently I put on my slide there. Legionnaires is a lung infection, so should probably be reserved for Nurgle only. A member of a legion is a legionary, not a legionnaire. This isn't some weirdo typo game I'm playing here. Member of a legion, legionary. Alright. And here we are onto the tier list. Delightful. So do keep in mind, obviously, that Phobos and Blooded are, of course, the pure speculation armies here, that I think this is where they will be. Compendium, Thousand Suns, Forge World and Troop are no longer considered a faction, so they're not on that tier list at all. Let's quickly go over the tiers. So, right at the top, Glass Half Dead logo, we have... Oh, I've also put these with the guys on the left, so closest to the logos, are, in theory, the strongest team within each row as well. Just to, you know, like, it's not a solid thing, it's just firmly. Honestly, I don't care too much about that, because I believe that within... The way I've structured this tier list is that within the tier, they are... Player skill should come back into play and allow the better player to win. Although you do still have bad matchups. But you don't have a bad matchup for the whole of the tier, kind of, you know? Whereas... Yes, cool. So, Glass Half Dead logo tier... S tier, S++, whatever. We have Pathfinders, arguably the strongest team in the game. We have Void Dancers. We have Novitiates, and we have Vet Guard. Now, again, Vet Guard, these are really interesting. So if I actually just very quickly go back to the win rates, these win rates for May show, where is it? Vet Guard are 54. That is below the average for the specialist teams there. And yet... And they're only just above Commandos. And yet, I've put them above. Again, this is just... I'm going to talk about why these 4 factions are the absolute top tier. and outstep everything else in the next slide. But just accept that they are there, and we will discuss the differences between when a faction is good in the middle, but then how it can compete at a higher rate the better your skill level is, and how that is reflected strangely in kind of win ratings. Then we have what I feel... Okay, so that's the top tier, 4 teams. Now, remove those teams from the game, and probably also remove the bottom, the 6th tier there, and I think you have like 20 factions that are all really brilliantly balanced. Yes, there are some clear winners and losers, but let's just keep going. Right, so tier 1, we've got Hunterclade, who that's where I predict they will be after the buff they've received. To be clear, this is post grenade nerf, this is post most recent balanced data slate. This is where I think all of these factions are going to sit. So as you can tell, Hunterclade has jumped right up from where they were, which was pretty poor, you know, easily the worst specialist team, to actually, possibly in my opinion, the best of the not broken specialist teams. We've then got Legionaries, we've then got Phobos, we've then got Corsairs, we've then got Commandos. That's it. That's the first tier, tier 1, whatever. I know a lot of people are going to say that they don't feel Commandos should be there, and I understand why, but I do think that Commandos are still a very strong team. I know that they took some hits from the Dynamite nerf, and some people are still reeling from that, but I think it's time to get over that and accept that it's a legitimately pretty strong team, and Just a Scratch does some really great things for them. Yeah. Anyway, tier 2, or circle tier, I suppose, we have the Blooded, who I've put just above Warp Coven, and then we have Craftworld. So then, from then on, it's all compendium teams. So I believe that if you are going to a tournament and you have Craftworld, Death Guard, Tyranids, or Demons, I think you can compete with the big boys. Oh, you know what? I probably should have put Scions in there as well. Now that I think about it, Scions should have been in that tier. Never mind. With that said, I'm not saying you're going to win with those. As mentioned, I don't think tier 2 and 3 is you can accidentally snag a podium. I think if there's some solid players in there and they don't cancel each other out with some crazy match dodging going on, you're not really going first, second, or third with tier 2 and 3 here. Or sorry, tier circle and square. There you go. However, I would put Blooded just above Warp Coven just because of the sheer number of models. I'm not saying that Blooded have a better match into every other faction than Warp Coven. I think Warp Coven does have some solid matchups that the Blooded don't. But I think in general, if you put those two head to head, I would expect the Blooded to come out on top more often than not. Craftworld are actually in a really, really good spot after in the balanced day slate getting +1 operative to each of their fire teams. I'm not going to talk too much about the compendiums. Death Guard, we've seen people run them recently. I think in Spain, like 2 tournaments were won by like 4 Death Guard players or something. Really good, really forgiving. They have the damage output, but more importantly, they have the resiliency to just stay on the board. Because 3-up armor save with a 5-up feel no pain is so good. Honestly, the next time a team comes out and it's a team-wide 5-up feel no pain, get that team. That team will be the next winning team. It's really, really good. Tyranids. Personally, I'm a fan of Tyranids. I think they're really good. They were one of the best teams in Compendium when Compendium was hot. I still think they're totally acceptable up there, and with the grenade nerf, it's going to be a little bit harder to deal with an all Gene Stealer team. I don't think that an all Gene Stealer team is actually going to beat some of the other teams that are above it, but it's going to be a real interesting match against the rest of the Compendium, just as it was at the beginning of the game when it was only Compendium and Vet Guard and Commandos. And then I've got Demons up there because I think Demons are pretty solid. I'm going to be honest. You get enough models and you can run them in a variety of different ways. I don't really expect to see Demons doing some big comeback or anything. I just think they are a pretty solid team. You've got the numbers, and you got the damage. Yeah, there's not much more to say, really. Yeah. Generally, I would say you either want to run them all as one thing, or you want to split it between Bloodletters and Plague Bearers. There you go. Right, then down to tier 3. Now, as you can see, there's quite a few models on here. Quite a few factions on here. This is essentially just the rest of Compendium. Now, I've seen some of these factions do really, really well. Even recently, we had Grey Knights recently just came top 3 at Warhammer World. But are we paying attention to a 3-round 50-player tournament? Probably not. Doesn't matter. They've still done pretty well. Scions have some amazing matchups into teams that are in the tier 1. Right? I mean, hey, I have mentioned it recently. I played into Scions as Grey Knights, and I managed to get tabled without failing a single armor save. They've got some pretty good tools. Greenskins, surprisingly good, actually. Drukhari, still solid, arguably now outdone by some of the newer teams in what they do, but not bad at all. Yeah, there you go. Basically, tier 3 is in my opinion, average tier for all Compendium teams. You've got a few above it and a few below. There you go. If you're sat in that tier, you can have some fun games, you can play some interesting kill team, you can have a good time at a tournament. Unless something goes crazy, you're not going to win that tournament. However, you're going to have a really good day. And then finally, we have 6th tier, or Pentagon tier, I suppose, where I've put Kroot. Yes, that's the picture of the chicken. I've put regular Tau. Oh, what are they called? Cadre mercenaries? No, that's the Kroot. Cadre. Let's just call them that. Okay. The Tau. And I've put standard Marines. I still have Deathwatch above standard Marines. Yep. And you could argue that standard Marines actually, Scouts are pretty solid. Yeah. But in general, like, if you just take fast engaging game, and it's also not exactly the most fun, especially now that you could just be taking Phobos. There you go. So I think those 3 where the rest of the Compendium is, which is a real shame for Kroot, because I feel like Kroot, they just need one thing. Anyway, let's move on. This isn't a balanced discussion. So, what do we think about that tier list? Well, firstly, the sweet, sweet middle. Kill Team has done a pretty great job of making the mechanics of the game reward being a good player. Around the middle tier of the game, so tier 1, 2, 3, and tier 1, 2, and 3, as I listed them just before, the game is honestly pretty brilliant, and player skill decides the majority of games. Most people obviously look at the extremes of a game system and judge it based off the potential extremities that you may encounter. But the majority of people don't actually play at the extremes. Kill Team is in a good place. I firmly believe that any outliers would only require a single minor tweak to become middle of the pack, and that if the top players weren't so hyper-focused on winning and were willing to play the not as good factions, we would see lots of them fly up in win rates. Kill Team currently is in a great spot when it comes to balance of the majority of the teams. But now let's talk about what we all want to talk about. Why are they the top? Yeah. Why is the top 4, Pathfinders, Void Dancers, Vetguard and Novitiates, at the top? Well, as I've written here apparently, they all have a different way of breaking the game. I've used the term breaking the game a little bit loosely, but I'm going to explain exactly what it means. And the way in which you break a game, it allows you to perform beyond your natural skill level, aka skill jumping. But also, you get into something of an arms race, because the best players have to play them to beat the other best players. If you're an average player playing one of these 4 teams, it allows you to perform better than your skill level should allow. So then your opponent has to play one as well, and playing anything else is putting themselves at a distinct disadvantage. So I began talking about this before realizing I should talk about it when the actual slide comes up. If you are a Pathfinders player, or a Void Dancers player, or a Vet Guard player, or a Novitiates player, and you are playing them in the meta way, so you're taking their strongest list and you're deliberately playing as hard as you can to win and being as cheesy as possible. I say cheesy, you're playing the game. It's just the rules of the game, right? You get a skill jump effect. Let's say you are playing 2 average players, okay? And one person, and you're both playing, let's say, an average team. So any of tier 1, 2, 3, and 6. If you're playing any of those, you play. If one of you is a better player, no matter which faction you're playing within those 3 tiers, within tiers 1, 2, and 3, the better player should still win. So even though those tiers are different, even you might be playing Deathwatch into, let's say, Phobos. Those are 2 tiers apart. But Kill Team is such a closely balanced game that the skill level will still allow the Deathwatch player to win. The reason the Deathwatch player might not always win is because we have the random element of chance with, dice rolls, etc. So, but if you just average everything out, I truly believe that more skilled player should still be the winner despite playing a lower faction. That's how closely balanced Kill Team is. However, if the average players here, one of them starts playing one of the 4 factions here in the meta way, Pathfinders, Void Dancers, Vet Guard, Novitiates, they will then start to win more than this person. And in response, for this person to ever win again, they will have to also play a skill jump faction. They can't just move from Deathwatch up to, let's say, Phobos and start winning again, because that's not giving you as much of a skill jump as one of these 4. How do they break the game? Pathfinders, they ignore a core rule in regards to obscurity. Having an ability to firstly, you've got a lot of models, and you are able to cancel obscurity and ignore terrain. That is such a core functionality of the game. To be able to just ignore that, really strong. Especially into things such as Phobos or Legionaries or Death Guard or whatever. Pathfinders are making it really challenging for elite teams to do anything in this game. Void Dancers, they ignore the core rules of movement because they all have a flip belt. They also have such an abundance of CP that they can also essentially ignore the core rules of activations and out-activations. So normally, if you have 10 models and your enemy has 3, right, you can move 3 of your 10 and not care what happens to them. And then as your elite team is now fully activated, your other 7 models can do anything they want. That is a really important way that the game is balanced, so that weaker data sheets can compete against stronger data sheets. If you just have one Space Marine against one Veteran Guardsman, the Space Marine always wins. Obviously, that's how the game works. So Void Dancers managed to ignore that thanks to things like Segrex Jess and Dominant Field. Vet Guard. So Vet Guard is an interesting one. Sorry, let's do Novitiates first. Novitiates, these last 2, Novitiates and Vet Guard, in my opinion, are a little bit peculiar. When I say they break the core game, that's a little bit of a stretch. However, Novitiates do it more so than Vet Guard. Novitiates break the core game in the sense that you essentially get extra CP a turn. In the way that they do, which is their faith points, where they can get extra rerolls in certain rolls that they get. It's almost like you're having an additional 3 or 4 CP a turn, which is an insane amount. Obviously, they could only then really be spent on tactical reroll, but whatever. And then being able to do that is, in a sense, breaking the core of the game, where everybody else has to work with the same number of core rerolls, they get an additional way to do it, and it can be a real challenge. Of course, having said that, that's not the only way that they are strong. Like, if you talk to them, yes, some players will say, oh, they get too many rerolls, but actually it's kind of some of their other acts of faith that make them as strong as they can be, especially at top tiers, into other top tier factions. Then we have Vetguard, who they just have a lot of models. I'm going to be honest with you, they just have 14 models, and the way that they break the game, again, I realise I'm being a little bit cheeky saying that they break the game here, but the way that they break the game is that their core strategic ploys affect all of their models, and they're free. So yeah. So you're not just... So if you take... Let's just say you had 14 Vet Guard and they were all GA2 troopers. Right? There you go. That's your Vet Guard. That is still stronger than if you went out and got the Blooded and just had 14 models. Or you had the Worm Cults and you just had 14 Neophytes. Because they get the stratagem that they... the strategic ploy that they can do on the entire army for free, they are inherently stronger. Having every single model reroll ones, really good. Having every single model, firstly, always dash before the game begins, really good. They're just... It's a little bit cheeky to say that they break the game. They just have an advantage over other factions that should, in theory, be the same. Also, 14 models is crazy. There you go. That is why those 4 factions are the top, and why they allow the skill jump factor. Finally, we have what's up with the compendium. Good question. I'm often dismissive of compendium because there's something that should be balanced alongside the spec teams, and no. I'm often dismissive of the compendium as something that should be balanced alongside the spec teams, and I still actually believe that. I want Kill Team to succeed, and that means it needs to sell Kill Team boxes, and compendium is not Kill Team boxes. I think compendium, outside of a few minor issues, was and is a great product. Those problems have been fixed now. I did a full video discussing this, go check it out. But looking at the compendium teams, we see a few issues, and primary among them is that actually compendium could be competitive. Yes, weirdly, that's the issue. It could be, but it's not. If we assume that pushing all compendium teams up a tier wouldn't make spec teams sell less, then very genuinely the entire compendium could be balanced in a single sweeping change by just giving every fire team one more body. This would obviously need a little bit of tweaking later. It's not the best, most scalpel precision update, but it would work. And it's a single line in a balanced data slate, which seems to be the way GW wants to balance things. They want to balance things with the smallest change having the biggest effect, as opposed to perhaps the most comprehensive change to have the most direct effect, if you will. So yeah. But anyway, the compendium didn't get any buffs in the last balanced data state, which I think is quite telling. They're generally not performing well outside of a few outliers. But it is really well balanced until you take into account the spec teams. If you ignore the spec teams, again, I've just said this in a video, and you just look at just the compendium, I think it's a really good product. Yeah. And with that said, everybody, this is the triple hello slide. The ultimate slide thanking you for watching the whole of the video, as you truly deserve. It's a special slide as you can only view it if you watch the whole video. Truly a wholesome blessing from humble creator to glorious viewer. Once again, consider checking out my Patreon, my merch, my Discord, my podcast, and my other channel. And don't forget, if you like what I do here, share the wealth and let others know. Thank you. Everybody, this has been Glass for Glass Half Dead. This has been every faction ranked. As you can tell, I currently have my mind on compendium, but I also am fully aware that the future of the game is specialist teams, and honestly, I'm excited for it. Guys, I hope you've enjoyed. Drop a comment. If it's about the tier rankings, let me know. If it's about hobby, I'd love to hear it too. Thank you very much. This has been Glass. I hope you've had a good day and continue to have a good day. Goodbye.